Okay. Wow. This is SummerSlam is going to be incredible. It's the summer WrestleMania. And while we're speaking of SummerSlam, did you want to go into our SummerSlam countdown?
Sure, we can do that.
All right. Now, you're going to have to help me on the list because I don't have the list in front of me. We're doing group 1 today?
Yeah, or as many as we can get through. I just put them in that order in those groups so that we can talk about those and then rank those and then go to the next group.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, so we're ranking our SummerSlams just like we ranked our WrestleManias back a couple months ago. So for group 1, I have them split up into 7 groups of 4. For group 1, we have SummerSlam 2007, 2010, 2012, 2006.
Okay. All right. Huh.
Now, 2007, I've never really been that big a fan of.
You didn't like the Great Khali Batista match?
No, it didn't do nothing for me.
You serious, man?
Yeah.
That was in Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Oh, which the worst Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame? The worst matches of all time?
Listen, man, 2007 was great, dude.
It was.
Holy smoke! I forgot that Triple H went against the Great Khali.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. How are we doing? How are we doing? Because I'm running through just reliving this stuff right now.
Yeah. So should I go down the card for each, or would that take too long? Or
yeah, you can. That's fine.
All right. So for 2007, we have Kane versus Finlay, Umaga versus Carlito versus Mr. Kennedy for the Intercontinental title, Rey Mysterio versus Chavo Guerrero, a Divas Battle Royal, John Morrison versus CM Punk for the ECW title, Triple H versus King Booker, Batista versus the Great Khali for the World Heavyweight Championship, and in the main event, John Cena versus Randy Orton for the WWE title. This was actually the first John Cena and Randy Orton match that would lead on to their 10,000 matches they would have after that. For 2010, we have Dolph Ziggler versus Kofi Kingston for the IC title, Melina versus Alicia Fox, which is Cameron's favorite match. She said on Tough Enough. The Big Show versus the Straight Edge Society in a 3-on-1 handicap match. Randy Orton versus Sheamus for the WWE title. Kane versus Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight title. And in the main event, Team WWE versus Team Nexus in a 14-man elimination tag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, this is taking me back to when the card, when you had the brand split,
yeah,
when you had ECW, when you had, it's crazy. But yeah, like your main event had to be stellar and everything else was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Right.
Okay, go ahead, my bad.
All right, 2012, we have Chris Jericho versus Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan versus Kane, The Miz versus Rey Mysterio for the Intercontinental title, Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rio for the World title, R-Truth and Kofi versus the Primetime Players for the WWE Tag titles, CM Punk versus John Cena versus The Big Show for the WWE title, and in the main event, Brock Lesnar versus Triple H. And finally, for this group, 2006, we have, let me get to it here, Chavo Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio, The Big Show versus Sabu for the ECW title, Hulk Hogan versus Randy Orton, Ric Flair versus Mick Foley in an I Quit match, Batista versus King Booker in a world title match, DX versus Vincent Shane McMahon in the main event, Edge versus John Cena for the WWE Championship.
Whew. Okay, man. This is bringing back a lot of memories, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we ranking these like worst to best, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I would definitely have to go worst. I'm looking at 2007.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Let's see.
I mean, anything with the Khali in it has to bring it down a lot.
These are the rules of the ranking system. Okay. 2006, that's when they hit their stride.
Yeah.
That's probably 2006 was when they hit their stride. That was Big Show with like the big beard, right? That was like Big Show stupidly overweight and not moving on ECW.
Right.
Yeah. That 2006 is probably the best out of this group. 2010, that was, like I said, that was when they had these shows, but it was main event heavy.
Right. The tag match is okay. The elimination tag match, Orton and Sheamus, I feel they never really had good matches against each other.
Right.
Kane and Ray is okay.
Yeah,
that would probably be
the Kane and Ray was when he won the Money in the Bank, right? Yeah. That just wasn't.
So 2010 be next.
2010 would be next as worst. Yeah, and then 2012 after that. I like the Brock Lesnar Triple H match just from the brutality of it.
Right.
But this was before Suplex City.
Yeah.
This was when Brock Lesnar just came back and you knew he was a badass. He was in trunks. But Triple H still got the win, which I thought was terrible.
Right.
But yeah, and this was definitely heavy on your main event. So yeah, definitely 2012 is as your third worst.
And then 2006. There's Group 1 finished pretty quickly. Group number 2, we have 2003, 1988, 1995, and 1990. Let me run down these cards. So for 2003, we have La Resistance versus the Dudleys for the World Tag Titles. The Undertaker versus A-Train. Shane McMahon versus Eric Bischoff in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Eddie Guerrero versus Rhino versus Tajiri versus Chris Benoit for the U.S. title in a 4-way. Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE title. Kane versus Rob Van Dam in a no-holds-barred match. And in the main event, Triple H versus Goldberg versus Shawn Michaels versus Jericho versus Nash versus Orton in the Elimination Chamber match. 1988 is the British Bulldogs versus the Fabulous Rougeaus. Bad News Brown versus Ken Patera. Rick Rude versus Junkyard Dog. Powers of Pain versus the Bolsheviks. Ultimate Warrior versus Honky Tonk for the Intercontinental title. Dino Bravo versus Don Morocco. Demolition versus the Hart Foundation for the tag titles. The Boss Man versus Coco Beware. Jake Roberts versus Hercules. And the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks of Andre and DiBiase. 90, I'll run down 90. Power and Glory versus the Rockers. Texas Tornado versus Mr. Perfect for the IC title. Queen Sherry versus Sapphire. The Warlord versus Tito Santana. Demolition again for the tag titles and a 2 out of 3 falls match. Jake Roberts versus Bad News. Nikolai Volkov and Jim Duggan versus the Orient Express.
Watch it.
What?
It's so funny how you can't even say Orient good.
Randy Savage versus Dusty Rhodes. Hulk Hogan versus Earthquake. And in the main event, the Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude for the WWE Championship in a steel cage match. And the final one for this group, 1995, we have Hakushi versus the 1-2-3 Kid. Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Bob Holly. Smoking Guns versus the Blue Brothers. Barry Horowitz versus Skip. Bertha Faye versus Alundra Blaze for the women's title.
Jeez.
The Undertaker versus Kama in a casket match. Bret Hart versus Isaac Yankem. Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon in a ladder match for the Intercontinental title. And in the main event, Diesel versus King Mabel for the WWE title.
Okay, we're gonna have to relive some of this stuff, but this is, oh man, what a road we have been on since 1990 and 1988, and especially in 1995. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. One thing while we're going through this, you see the level and the number of matches on SummerSlam back in the 80s and 90s, and to be honest with you, man, 1988. Felt like a WrestleMania. Okay. So I'm putting that pretty high. That's the one I remember a lot. To me, it was like a WrestleMania.
Right.
95 is only on this list because of the ladder. It's the only reason it's there. Wow, you had Diesel and King Mabel, a 7-footer versus a guy almost the same height, but just super huge. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, on 95, the only good match is Shawn versus Razor.
That's it. That is it. Okay, so
yeah, that one probably go last.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah.
Then I'm going, okay, all right. I got 90. Yeah, I got 90 as second worst.
Okay, 90. See, which one was that one?
90 was Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude in a steel cage match, and it had Earthquake. Hogan with Boss Man versus Earthquake and Dino Bravo.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. And then I got 2003, the Elimination Chamber match.
Yeah.
Next, I like this one, but it was the Elimination Chamber.
Right, and it's probably the worst Elimination Chamber match.
Well, I remember Shawn trying to jump off the top and doing the elbow drop.
Right.
But this was the season of Goldberg, so you had to capitalize on Goldberg. He put Chris Jericho through that glass or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it was a different type of
This is the match that Goldberg should have won the title in.
Yes, definitely should have won the title in, but didn't.
And if you remember, when they first started promoting that SummerSlam, it was supposed to be just Triple H and Goldberg 1-on-1.
Bingo. But wasn't this didn't this match end almost with Triple H like, you'll never get my title?
Probably. It's the one where Goldberg goes to spear him and he gets the sledgehammer and hits him in the head or the shoulder.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so yeah, you already went through that.
Yep.
I was just looking at man. Like back in the day, you had like 10 matches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and most of them were just kind of put on there with no meaning or anything.
They were, but like I said, it looked like a WrestleMania back then. Like you had an April or March, April WrestleMania, and you had SummerSlam. Those were your opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yep. All right. Group 3, we have 96, 93, 2009, and 97. So 93, we'll do that first. Razor Ramon versus Ted DiBiase. The Steiner Brothers versus the Heavenly Bodies for the WWE Tag Titles. Shawn Michaels versus Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental title. IRS versus 1-2-3 Kid. Bret Hart versus Doink the Clown. Jerry Lawler versus Bret Hart. Ludwig Borga versus Marty Jannetty. The Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez in a Rest in Peace match, whatever that is. Tatanka and the Smoking Guns versus Bam Bam Bigelow and the Head Shrinkers. And the main event, Lex Luger versus Yokozuna for the WWE title.
Okay, let's pause for a second. Why was this Bret versus Doink and then Jerry versus Bret?
They had a thing. The feud was Bret and Lawler, and Lawler come out there acting like he couldn't compete at first, said his leg was hurt, so he had Doink be the substitute. And after Doink kind of weakened up Bret, then Lawler took advantage and that match started.
Okay. And this was the Lex Express?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yep. 1996, we have Owen Hart versus Savio Vega, the Smoking Guns versus the Body Donnas versus the New Rockers versus the Godwins for the tag titles, Psycho Sid versus the British Bulldog, Goldust versus Mark Merrow, Jerry Lawler versus Jake Robert, Mankind versus The Undertaker in the Boiler Room Brawl, and Shawn Michaels versus Vader for the WWE title. 97, we have Mankind versus Triple H in a steel cage match, Goldust versus Brian Pillman, LOD versus the Godwins, the British Bulldog versus Ken Shamrock for the European title versus DOA in an 8-man tag, Steve Austin versus Owen Hart for the IC title, and Bret Hart versus The Undertaker for the WWE title with Shawn Michaels as a special referee. And for 2009, we have Rey Mysterio versus Ziggler for the IC title, MVP versus Jack Swagger, Jerry Show versus Crime Time for the tag titles, Kane versus the Great Khali. Oh boy, I bet that was a match of the year classic.
It was.
DX versus Legacy, Christian versus William Regal for the ECW title. Oh no, what happened?
It's split.
Yeah. Okay. Randy Orton versus John Cena for the WWE title, and the main event, CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy for the World Heavyweight title and a TLC match.
Okay.
So
your turn with starting these off.
All right. Let's see. 2009, Punk and Hardy's pretty good. I don't remember Orton and Cena that much. Those matches kind of started to blend in after their first one. DX and Legacy was pretty good. Christian and Regal was a really short match. And Ray and Ziggler was pretty good.
Yeah, Ray. I do remember Ray and Ziggler. Kane and the Great Khali is like I still had that on Blu-ray. That was so awesome.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this was the CM Punk Jeff Hardy show. I was going back and looking at 97. This was kind of the start of it all, right? In 97, this was
right.
Austin and Owen.
Right, this is the one where he breaks his neck.
Yeah, this is when he breaks his neck, and then you get Bret and Undertaker with Shawn as the referee, right?
Yeah,
and the whole confusion with the whole triangle that you had with Bret, Undertaker, and Shawn and the title.
Yeah.
Just for what that led to, and the incident, because the Steve Austin Owen Hart match itself is good. And then you have the aftermath from it, what happens during everything.
Right.
Yeah.
In matches like that where something crazy happens, like him breaking his neck, people forget the actual match. They just remember that moment.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very true.
Just like the Montreal Screwjob, that actual match was a good match up to that point.
Yeah, heavily. And I think that's why the ending matters so much, because the match was good, and then you get the after effects, how it ended,
Right. So which one are we wanting to put as the worst?
Don't we have to I'm just going by the rule. The rules say we have to drop any match with Khali on it at the bottom, right?
Well, I mean, it gets a lot took off, but we don't necessarily have to put it at the bottom. Anything else say that show, really?
Nah.
Punk and Hardy.
It did. But that was your main event. Like, that was your That was definitely your main event. I'm looking at 93 and the fact that the Steiner brothers never lost. But I'm going 93 with the Lex Express as your worst, because I don't really think the Lex Express was built off of the metal in his elbow and if he could slam Yokozuna, right?
Right. And he was supposed to be the next Hulk Hogan.
Right. And that's exactly where I was going with that. I mean, that's good, but the match itself.
The funny part is he wins by countout and he celebrates like he won the title.
Yeah. I thought Ludwig Borga could have been the next great thing. But then we saw him as Kozlov later. So
yeah.
Oh man. I'm going 93 as you.
All right. Then I'm thinking maybe 96.
Exactly. I love the Boiler Room Brawl.
Yeah.
I thought that was excellent. Vader and Shawn, I've heard about that match so many times.
Right. That's the match where Shawn gets all pissy and gets ill at Vader.
Yeah. And dude, when you look back at it, we don't know these guys, right? So the only thing that you get from Vader is being just a badass, a dominant figure. If you're walking down the street, you want to, change cities because he's walking down the same street, right? Jim Cornette says he's just a teddy bear. And Shawn Michaels is just berating him, and Vader's scared he's going to lose his job, and he just does whatever he wants. Obviously, Vader is your base. So Shawn Michaels, he basically took advantage of him, just treated him like crap, which was odd to hear from a guy that you grew up and feared, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, yeah, with all the dynamics that happened in that match, wow. Outside the match, it was crazy.
So then that leaves us with 2009 or 97.
It's your call, man. I think 2009. Wow.
I
think 2009
was pretty good.
Yeah, I think it had better matches.
Right.
But they were forgettable.
Yeah. Even that TLC match is good, but comparing it to other TLC matches, I don't feel it lives up.
Right. It's pretty tough to, when you go back and look at these lists of pay-per-views and you look at the matches, if you can remember what that match led to next, because, all of these are in transition with each other. One pay-per-view sets up the next. If you can find the transition in that match to the next, your top four, I guess it would have been a Survivor Series and then Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. That makes sense. If you just remember it for being a spot fest, okay, cool. It played a lasting memory in your mind, which is cool, but it loses its importance because you've probably seen the same high spots 15 times,
Yeah.
So yeah, let's put the TLC the Jeff Hardy CM Punk next, and then we'll go with 97 as the best out of that.
All right, I already got that.
Okay, cool.
All right, so group number 4, we have 1989, 2004, 1994, and 2000. So in 1989, we have the Brainbusters versus the Hart Foundation, Dusty Rhodes versus Honky Tonk Man, Mr. Perfect versus the Red Rooster, Rick Martel and the Rougeau Brothers versus Tito Santana and the Rockers, the Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude for the IC title, Jim Duggan and Demolition versus Andre and the Twin Towers, Greg Valentine versus Hercules, Ted DiBiase versus Jimmy Snuka, and the main event, Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake versus Randy Savage and Zeus.
Yeah, no. Oh, man. Okay, next one.
94, we have IRS and Bam Bam Bigelow versus the Head Shrinkers, Alundra Blaze versus Bull Nakano for the women's title, Razor Ramon versus Diesel for the IC title, Tatanka versus Lex Luger, Jeff Jarrett versus Mabel, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart in the steel cage match for the WWE title, and The Undertaker versus The Undertaker.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I'm reliving this stuff and how big it was, man.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
Let's see. 2004. We have the Dudley Boys, that's Bubba Ray, Devon, and Spike, versus Rey Mysterio, Billy Kidman, and Paul London. Kane versus Matt Hardy in a Till Death Do Us Part match. Booker T versus John Cena for the U.S. title in match number 1 in their Best of 5 series. Edge versus Batista versus Chris Jericho for the IC title. Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero. Triple H versus Eugene. JBL versus The Undertaker and Randy Orton, or JBL versus The Undertaker for the WWE title, and Randy Orton versus Chris Benoit for the World Heavyweight title. And then 2000, we have The Right to Censor versus Rikishi and Too Cool, X-Pac versus Road Dogg, Chyna and Eddie Guerrero versus Val Venus and Trish Stratus for the IC title, Taz, Steve Blackman versus Shane McMahon for the Hardcore title, Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys versus the Hardys for the tag titles in the first TLC match. The Cat versus Terry in a stink face match. That also is a match classic. The Undertaker versus Kane, and The Rock versus Kurt Angle versus Triple H for the WWE title.
Okay, this is where I hate you, because you did this deliberately. If anybody realizes, this group probably has the top 4 most memorable pay-per-views, either as a kid or in a different era, which was the Attitude Era. So you're a horrible person. I was gonna say that. You're a horrible person. Oh man. Okay. Let me just say again, you're a horrible person. Dude, I remember the 89 and 94 match pay-per-views vividly. This is tough. Okay. Let me go back to 2000. I think no, 2004. 2004 has to be the lowest because of the fact that the Randy Orton Chris Benoit match was a transitional championship, right?
Right, but it was a good match.
It was a very good match. I was rooting for Randy Orton to win it because they had just built him up quick or whatever. But I think the next night, or if not the week after, that was the thumbs down.
Next night,
yeah. So he was a transition champ. I was the Kane and Matt Hardy saga, loved it. Big fan of Triple H and Eugene. Dude. 2004 has to be the lowest for me just because you're a transitional champion. But like I said, the 89 and 94, dude, those were kid class. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, so 2004 goes last. Let's see. Because I got to make up my mind between 89 and 94.
Well, 94, you have that terrible Undertaker versus Undertaker match.
But that's the thing, though. It was built, man. It was built. It was Bryan Adams, right? He was the fake Undertaker.
Brian Lee.
Brian Lee, sorry. He was the fake Undertaker, dude. They wore makeup heavily, long hair, about the same size. They're probably the tallest guys on the roster. Everybody wanted the Undertaker back. I don't care. Like, I wanted to see why or how you had 2 Undertakers. It's real to me, damn it, back then. So,
And this the one where Paul Bearer had the urn that had the light out of it?
No, that was the Kane. That was the Kane match.
Oh, was?
Yeah, that was the devil's favorite demon.
Yeah, I thought this was the one where he opened the urn and it's like a big ray of light shot out of it.
Oh, my bad. I don't know. I just know Ted DiBiase and the fake Undertaker came out first.
Yeah.
And then you saw the real one, and then you got the face to face, and it was like, oh, he's real. But
what do you have any memories on Jeff Jarrett and Mabel?
Vivid. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. These were built off of main events back, and that one just dominated. It was the main event over Bret Hart and Owen Hart. Yeah. Which I thought was a pretty good match, but
yeah, there's a different style of cage match.
Yeah. I'll go this one in second.
All right.
And I will go. Okay, yeah. So 2000 has to be the best. 89. 89. I love. Sorry, wait. Ultimate Warrior defeating Rick Rude. Was that when Roddy Piper came out and flashed Rude?
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Okay, that was the one I still have on VHS. And then this was No Holds Barred Hulk Hogan. Like the No Holds Barred movie came to real life when Zeus came. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and also Martel and the Rougeos versus Tito and the Rockers is pretty good.
Yeah, and I was a big fan of the Brainbusters too.
Yeah.
So that match to kick it off was cool. Dusty was just flamboyant back then. I liked the red. Yeah, I did. But as you see, Bobby Heenan's on this thing 18,000 times.
Oh yeah, he was on every pay-per-view about 18,000 times. But yeah,
everywhere.
Did you hear about the whole Bobby Heenan on Twitter thing?
Well, was he sick or he was missing or he was dead or something like that?
Bobby Heenan, not Bobby Eaton.
Oh, no. What happened with Bobby Heenan?
So everybody thought he had made a Twitter account. Like they actually thought like it got verified and everything. Couldn't find out it wasn't even him. It was somebody posting as him.
Well, see, when I saw that, I thought he was really on it due to the fact that he doesn't still have throat problems or something like that, where his voice doesn't sound like it sounds. So I thought it just made sense. Yeah, I thought it made sense that he was on Twitter.
Yeah.
So he wasn't on Twitter?
No, it wasn't him.
How did it get verified?
I have no idea.
Wait. Was it for him but not him?
No, I mean his wife didn't even know that it was hacked. Wow. Like it was somebody just made an account.
Wow. Okay. That sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. Now, yeah, because I mentioned this. What's up with Bobby Eaton?
Yeah, he's missing. He was supposed to be somebody at Atlanta airport or something. He's missing in Atlanta or something.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. 89, second best, and then 2000 just dominates. This was the Kurt Angle concussion match.
Yeah.
Okay. It was crazy because they was like, yeah, he's supposed to fake a concussion, and then he really did have one. So crazy. I still remember Steve Blackman bringing out the kendo sticks or like the light sticks or something like that, and just beating the crap out of Shane. Chris Benoit and Jericho was awesome. And of course we get the.
Remember that's when Shane McMahon jumped off the top of the thing, the Tron thing?
Yeah, that's where he was trying to commit suicide every pay-per-view, right? And then you got the TLC match. You got Chyna and Eddie Guerrero with the roses, right?
Yeah.
X-Pac and Road Dogg, that was just like, whatever. Dude, this was what one of their video games was based off. Like this pay-per-view right here set up things for video games.
Yeah.
Because every single one of these guys were on that video game as like a headlining star. It's crazy.
Yep.
Cool.
3 more groups left.
That last, I can only imagine what you have left. So that was tough. Like you were picking at my heartstrings because that was the 89? 89. Which one was the 89 was
Hogan and BK.
Yeah. 89, watch it over and over and over.
All right, so the next set of groups is Group 5. We'll have SummerSlam 99, SummerSlam 05, SummerSlam 2014, and SummerSlam 2008. So I guess I'll run down those cards. All right, for 99, we have Jeff Jarrett versus D'Lo Brown for both the Intercontinental and European Championship. We have a number 1 contender tag team turmoil match for the tag titles. We have Al Snow versus the Big Boss Man for the hardcore title. Ivory versus Tori Wilson for the women's title. Ken Shamrock versus Steve Blackman in the Lion's Den weapons match. Test versus Shane McMahon in a Greenwich Street fight.
The main streets of Greenwich.
Yeah. They mean the Big Show and Undertaker, the Unholy Alliance, versus X-Pac and Kane for the tag titles. We have The Rock versus Billy Gunn in the Kiss My Ass match. And the main event, Mankind versus Steve Austin versus Triple H for the WWE Championship. And that was the match that had Jesse Ventura as the special referee.
Okay.
All right, so 2005. We have Chris Benoit versus Orlando Jordan for the United States title. Edge versus Matt Hardy. Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero in a ladder match. Kurt Angle versus Eugene for Kurt Angle's Olympic gold medals. Randy Orton versus The Undertaker. John Cena versus Chris Jericho for the WWE Championship. Batista versus JBL in a no-holds-barred match for the World Heavyweight Championship. And in the main event, Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels. The next one is 2008. We have MVP versus Jeff Hardy. Beth Phoenix and Santino Marella versus Kofi Kingston and Mickie James for the Intercontinental and Women's Championship. Matt Hardy versus Mark Henry for the ECW Championship. CM Punk versus JBL for the World Heavyweight Championship. Great Khali for the WWE title. Batista versus John Cena. And the main event, The Undertaker versus Edge in the Hell in a Cell match. And the last one for this group is 2014. We have Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz for the Intercontinental title. Paige versus AJ Lee for the Divas Championship. Rusev versus Jack Swagger in a flag match. Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose in a lumberjack match. Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho. Stephanie McMahon versus Brie Bella. Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. And in the main event, Brock Lesnar versus John Cena for the WWE Championship.
Wow, that's tough. Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to look at 05 as being the worst. 05 or 99, I think. Or I don't know, Triple H and Khali's on 08.
Ray and Eddie, that was a good match.
Yeah.
Hogan and Shawn.
That's the one where Shawn bumps all over the place because he's Hogan.
Yeah. I've got a job to do. Yeah. The rules of this started with any pay-per-view with Great Khali has to be bumped. So
right.
Let's see.
But it does have that Hell in a Cell match.
And it has the Batista John Cena match. That was the match where one of them got injured, right? Or claiming that. Yeah. Let's see. Which one are you gonna put dead last?
Probably the 05.
05?
Yeah.
Okay. Because Shawn Michaels should have beat Hulk Hogan. Like everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's the case, and a lot of people should have beat Hogan. But it's Hogan. You know he's gonna play politics.
Yeah, it is. I'll go 99 after that.
And then which one?
I cannot believe it.
14, I mean, the main event on it is that pretty much a squash match with Brock and Cena.
Yeah, but you do remember that match, though. Yeah, I mean, you remember the fact they crap out of it.
Right.
Oh, man, because that almost set up the legend Brock Lesnar outside of Suplex. Just beat them.
Ain't that where Suplex City started with that match?
Well, Suplex City started at WrestleMania when he said it. And, 10 seconds after that, people were chanting it. Yeah, like, that that just shows you how social media is crazy. Because I mean, you heard it on television, but there's no way that people in the audience. And next thing you know, people were chanting Suplex City. So yeah, it started there. Let's see.
Roman and Orton is pretty good match.
Yeah, let's do the Khali. What was that? 2008.
Yeah.
Let's do that second to first, I guess. Because you did have Undertaker and Edge. You did have Batista and Johnson.
Yep. All right, so that's it for that group. Now we at Group 6. We have 92, 2013, 91, and 2015. So I'll do 2015 first.
All right.
We'll do Randy Orton versus Sheamus, The New Day versus the Primetime Players versus the Lucha Dragons versus Los Matadores for the tag titles, Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev, Stephen Amell and Neville versus Stardust and King Barrett, Ryback versus The Big Show versus The Miz for the IC title, Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose versus Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper from the Wyatt family, Seth Rollins versus John Cena for the WWE Championship and the United States Championship, Team PCB versus Team Bella versus Team Bad in a 3-team elimination match, Kevin Owens versus Cesaro, and in the main event, The Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar. 2013, we have Bray Wyatt versus Kane in a Ring of Fire match, Cody Rhodes versus Damian Sandow, Alberto Del Rio versus Christian for the world title, Natalya versus Brie Bella, Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk, Dolph Ziggler and Caitlyn versus Big E and AJ Lee, Daniel Bryan versus John Cena, and then Randy Orton cashed his Money in the Bank in against Daniel Bryan for the WWE title. Then we got 92. We have the Legion of Doom versus Money Incorporated, Nails versus Virgil, Shawn Michaels versus Rick Martel, The Natural Disaster versus the Beverly Brothers for the tag titles, Crush versus Repo Man, Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage for the WWE title, The Undertaker versus Kamala, Tatanka versus the Berserker, and the British Bulldog versus Bret Hart for the Intercontinental title. And finally, 1991, we have the British Bulldog, Ricky Steamboat, and Texas Tornado versus Power and Glory and Warlord. We have Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect for the IC title, the Natural Disasters versus the Bushwhackers, Virgil versus DiBiase for the $1 Million title, the Big Boss Man versus the Mounts in a jailhouse match, LOD versus the Nasty Boys in a tag title match street fight, IRS versus Greg Valentine, in the main event, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter, Colonel Mustafa, and General Adnan. Then we also had the Savage Elizabeth wedding in that
one. Wow. There's so many things to consider when looking at these papers. Obviously, the 90s pay-per-view were headline heavy.
Oh, yeah.
But also, you have to look at the, the 2015 one,
right,
where it followed NXT. And for some reason, this was dang near built like a WrestleMania. It had everybody on it. You got Arrow was on this thing. You know, it was almost a WrestleMania. That was the weekend where you had NXT on Saturday.
Right, just like it's going to be this year.
Right. 2000 and what was it? 13 was everybody's rooting for Daniel Bryan, but you also had the Money in the Bank possibility. So
you also had Brock and Punk.
Yeah, and definitely Brock and Punk, which I did not want to see, just because I thought they would have worked better being aligned with Heyman versus the splitting off and then basically Punk fused with Heyman. That's just.
But that match itself was really good.
Yeah, it was very, very good. I just, like I said, I was so pissed that they had to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going the 90. I'm going 92 dead last.
All right.
This one did have Warrior versus Savage.
And Bulldog and Bret.
But it was mainly Bulldog and Bret. I spoke about how this was just changing the whole Hart family because you had Bret's sister married to Bulldog, and who was she gonna?
And also the whole atmosphere of it being in Wembley Stadium was pretty cool.
Wembley Stadium, just crazy. Something groundbreaking like that, and now they go to London. Now they do international tours, and you've had an NXT London, so it's crazy.
Right.
But yeah, I think that goes dead last.
Okay.
I will go. I'm not gonna lie, man. I want to go.
Well, if you look at 91 match-wise, there's only really one really good match, which is Bret and Perfect.
But it was I'm telling you, dude.
It's got the wedding and stuff.
still have issues opening up press. I still have issues when I go to a wedding. I'm dead serious, dude. That one, that's why it's hard for me to knock it, knowing it was trash.
Right.
Knowing it was dead trash. You even have Irwin IRS versus Greg Valentine, the match before the heavyweight match. Like, you can see bathroom breaks all in them.
Yeah.
But, let's look at it match-wise, and it has to go second to last.
Yep.
Because even your main event wasn't the main event. I mean, the wedding reception. Okay. Remember I said that some of these matches, or some of these like headlining matches, set up things 6 months later, like they were the building block to things, as this pay-per-view should be. It's your summer WrestleMania. I'm gonna go 2015 second, and then 2013 first, only because 2015 it was built like it was a WrestleMania,
right?
But it still had gaps. I mean, I did like the Undertaker Brock Lesnar match, but thought that was kind of slow. I mean, it was cool, but
that women's match was a disappointment.
Yeah, it was too many people in the match. Obviously, you're still holding on to the original divas, but you're trying to introduce new talent at the same time. Seth and John was great. Like, I thought Seth and John was great. I
weird finish with Jon Stewart.
Yeah, but like I said, it was a WrestleMania. Like, this was basically WrestleMania. So I'm going 2015 second to last, and I'm going 2013 based off of Brian and John, Brock and CM Punk, and then the screw job finish with Randy holding on to the belt at the end of the night.
Right.
Did you hear about the people that complained after the SummerSlam 2013?
No.
People were mad that they didn't get a decision between Daniel Bryan and John Cena. Like, they got it, but then
that's the point where Triple H turns on Bryan, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people were like, this was back in the $50 range, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think they had converted the entire thing over. But so this was back in the $50 era, and people were mad.
Yeah, because the network hadn't even started yet.
Right. People were pissed. People were pissed because they paid money to see at the end of the night John Cena have the title or Daniel Bryan have the title. And when they got swerved with Randy holding the belt, people called in and were asking for a refund.
I'm sure people's going to always complain about something.
Yeah, so
especially wrestling fans.
Yeah, it's real to me, damn it. So let's go.
That's right. All right, so our final group, we have SummerSlam 2002, 2001, 98, and 2011. So for 2011, we have Kofi Kingston, John Morrison, and Rey Mysterio versus R-Truth, The Miz, and Alberto Del Rio. Mark Henry versus Sheamus. Kelly versus Beth Phoenix for the Divas Championship. Wade Barrett versus Daniel Bryan. Randy Orton versus Christian in a no-holds-barred match for the world title. CM Punk versus John Cena for the WWE title. And then Del Rio cashes in Money in the Bank and beats CM Punk for the WWE title. 2002, we have Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio. We have Ric Flair versus Chris Jericho. Edge versus Eddie Guerrero. Christian and Lance Storm versus Booker T and Goldust for the WWE tag titles. Rob Van Dam versus Chris Benoit for the Intercontinental title. The Undertaker versus Test. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H in the unsanctioned street fight. And the main event, Brock Lesnar versus The Rock for the undisputed WWE Championship. 2001, we have Edge versus Lance Storm for the Intercontinental title. The Dudley Boys and Test versus the APA and Spike. X-Pac versus Tajiri for the Cruiserweight title and the Light Heavyweight title. Chris Jericho versus Rhino. Rob Van Dam versus Jeff Hardy in a ladder match for the Hardcore title. Kane and The Undertaker versus Diamond Dallas Page and Kanyon for both the WWE and WCW tag titles in a steel cage match. Kurt Angle versus Steve Austin for the WWE title. And the main event, The Rock versus Booker T for the WCW title. And finally, 1998, we have D'Lo Brown versus Val Venis for the European title. The Oddities versus Kai and Tai in a 4-on-3 handicap match. X-Pac versus Jeff Jarrett in a hair versus hair match. Edge and Sable versus Mark Miro and Jacqueline. Ken Shamrock versus Owen Hart in the Lions Den match. The New Age Outlaws versus Mankind in a Falls Count Anywhere 2-on-1 handicap match for the tag titles. Triple H versus The Rock in a ladder match for the Intercontinental title. And the main event, Steve Austin versus Undertaker for the WWE title.
Nice. You got some nice. Okay. All right. I'm going. I already know what's it mean.
You do.
Yeah, I'm out of this group.
Yeah,
to me, it's Rock and Brock.
Yeah, you was right. That's who I would put it number one.
Yeah, that kind of.
Plus, that Shawn Michaels first match back.
Yeah, that was a good card. If you were tuning in to pick a SummerSlam, that would be it. That was, I don't know. Even when you look at the videos backwards, everybody was on their feet.
Oh yeah.
So okay, so now let's do dead last.
11, we had Punk and Cena. That was pretty good. And Orton and Christian.
Yeah, I'm going 2001 is dead last.
Okay, that leaves 98 and 2011.
Yeah, 2000. I mean, 1998 can come next.
Okay.
Second to last. With
second to last, right?
Yeah, second to last. And then that
2011.
leaves 2000. This was the one where Randy beat Christian for the title, right?
Right.
But after Christian had just won it for the first time.
Yeah.
I started the campaign or extended the campaign. I freaking forgot what the hashtag was, but it was like give Christian a rematch or let Christian win or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you remember that whole saga? Like Christian had finally won it.
Right.
And then
I think this was actually the last match in that whole series of matches they had that summer.
Okay. But this was when he lost it though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then they went on to have, fantastic matches on like SmackDown.
Right.
But yeah, I was pissed when Christian didn't hold on to it for like more than.
Yeah.
Okay. 2011 was second to last.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we want to run all these down real quick?
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going from 28 to number 1. 2007, 2010, 2012, 2006, 95, 90, 2003, 88, 93, 96, 09, 97, 04, 94, 89, 2000, 2005, 99, 2008, 2014, 92, 91, 2015, 2013, 2001, 1998, 2011, and number 1 is 2002.
I think that's an awesome list.
I do
awesome.
Okay. Now then.
Yeah. Now that we got that taken care of, we have ranked all of the SummerSlam according to our light loves. What's next on the agenda, my friend?
Next, we got to do the Ultimate SummerSlam card.
Okay. Okay, this may take me a while. So, because remember last time I cheated, didn't I?
You
can call it whatever you want, cheat. And I only did like the main events or something like that. What did I?
No, this is not that one. That's the rebooking the SummerSlam.
Oh, what this is? Go ahead.
This is the one where you have to take like one match from each SummerSlam, but you can't repeat people, and you have to have so many titles on there.
That's what it is. Okay. All right. Give me a week.
Okay.
Give me a week. So we pick one. Go over the rules again.
Okay, so you take one match from each SummerSlam, and it has to be on the card, the list. There'll be 28 matches on the card, one from each SummerSlam.
Right.
Okay, so you can't repeat anybody more. You got to have them only once. So if somebody's at one match, then you can't put another match. Okay. You must have the following titles on the line: the WWE title, the World Heavyweight Championship, Intercontinental Championship, any of the tag team titles, and a women's title.
But we can only have them one time. Like we have to take.
You can only have one WWE title match and only one world title match.
Right. So we'll have 28. We'll have 28 matches.
Right.
But we can also like there's no way that Hogan is going to face The Rock.
No, because he never faced The Rock.
Right. Okay.
It has to be actual SummerSlam matches that have happened.
That have happened. Okay. All right. Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay. So let me get this straight. So CM Punk and Brock Lesnar can be on the same Ultimate SummerSlam as Bad News Brown and Ken Patera?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I am all up for it.